If the only meat options you had were human beings, and if you go to the grocery store, it's not chicken, it's not steak, whatever you eat normally, it's just
Yeah.
people, would you go vegan tomorrow if that was your only way to stop from paying for people to be killed and eaten?
Um, I don't think I'd be able to go vegan tomorrow. I think that would be very difficult. Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Hello, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Just making sure all of our audio levels are fine here. Um,
I'm
uh,
streaming this myself too, by the way, just so you know.
oh, it's perfectly fine. I always assume that most people are going to be streaming it. I'm just going to boost your audio just a tiny, tiny bit. Can you give me a test real quick?
Test, test, test. Hello, hello, hello.
All right, that sounds like it's probably going to be just fine. Chat, let me know if the audio levels need any further adjustments as this goes on. Real quick, what do you want me to list your name and pronouns as? Do you just go by Vegan Gains generally, or
Yeah, vegan gains. You can call me Richard. That's my real name, and I
okay,
identify as male. So
okay, so he
he,
can pronouns.
him.
Alrighty, we gotcha. All right. Well, welcome to the Demon Mama show. Happy to have you. I've heard a lot about you over the years. I don't know if you've heard about me. Maybe you have. I mean, assume you have because you came here, but I don't know how much you know about me. But welcome to the show. I understand you want to talk about veganism. Did
Yeah.
you have a particular topic in veganism you want to talk about, or were you just looking to just have a general discussion, like whatever you?
Well, we could have a bit of a general discussion, but I wanted to bring up a specific point first. I
Okay,
saw a
sure.
video you made recently where you, I don't know if maybe it's not. I don't know. Do you change your hair color pretty frequently?
I mean, I think the last veganism video I did was like months ago.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean the schedule is hectic. But I just recently cut my hair, and previously it
Okay.
was colored quite drastically. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so you went on a rant where you're saying you agree with vegans and vegans won't acknowledge that, but they just like constantly try to be combative with you.
Yeah, it's a frustration I've had with vegan advocates for a long time, which is that I think that they make a lot of good arguments for veganism and for the ethical value of veganism, but I don't think that's really good enough. I don't think just making a moral case is the way that you win. I don't think that you can just sort of like proclaim and make a case for morality without like I don't know, and then just call it good. And I think that's what in my experience, a lot of vegan activists I've engaged with are very, very focused on the morality of veganism and the individual morality of people's actions, and they generally fail to engage with. They generally fail to engage with like people with the practical application of veganism and how you build a strategy for a world that is better to animals in general, if not fully vegan. And so that's something I've had a number of videos where I've talked about this. I've also had quite a few videos where I argue against anti-vegan people because ultimately I do think that the argument for not just animal liberation, but also for a non or a diet that doesn't involve killing animals. I think those are good things. I think those are very good things to aspire to. But I also recognize that a lot of people really struggle with that quite deeply, and in bringing that up, in bringing up the struggles and in attempting to address those struggles, I've encountered from a lot of vegan activists what I would consider to be genuine pushback that I find unhelpful and also personally very annoying. So yeah.
Okay, right. Like I recall a debate you had with Dr. Avi a while ago. Do you remember that debate?
Mhm. Yeah, I think
Um
it was about gender with him.
no, I think you maybe it was someone else, but
Might have been somebody else.
okay, maybe I'm thinking of somebody else, but did you have the position that it's okay for like people to kill animals due to cultural reasons, like Native Americans, some of their
Um,
rituals and stuff?
No, I
No?
think
Okay.
that no,
I must
my
be thinking
position
of
on
someone
that has
different
always
then.
been a little more complicated. I don't think that it can be like I think a lot of I think certain vegans will ignore culturally important activities, but I tend to think that even if an activity is culturally important, if it causes harm, that we should challenge it. I mean, I grew up in a hyper traditionalist family. Is a nice way of putting it. I grew up in a cult. And there were lots of things that they considered to be culturally important that I think were morally wrong. So I don't really think that like a this is a part of our culture is necessarily just like an open like a blanket defense. I think there are some cases where it can be made. And I also think that like it's not a huge at least personally when I look at this sort of issue, I don't think like native cultures using animals in ceremonies or eating meat ceremonially is like a statistically meaningful thing that we should worry about all that much. I think that like meat eating culture and meat subsidies and the meat packing industry, these are like much bigger issues to focus on. I think that sometimes um people get I don't know, they become more interested again in like in like having a moral triumph or something in which they're willing to just like jump down and say, yeah, I think that like we should like I don't give a shit. You hear this sometimes with like in the debate circles, where it's like, yeah, I don't give a fucking shit. If native people eat meat, that's still bad. Like, you think it's gonna be okay if they like kill kids or whatever? And it's like the answer is obviously no. But fixating on like, but if you're addressing the problem of meat eating and your first thought is to like target like a part portion of the population that eats meat for a religious purpose, I just think you're focusing on things incorrectly. So, yeah, that would be my take
Okay.
on that particular issue.
All right, cool. So are you vegan?
I am not like I mean, I don't know what you mean when you mean vegan. Do you mean like I always eat it, or I mean I'm aspirationally vegan. I've been very slowly and surely like clipping meat out of my diet. But you know, it's slow going. I struggle with it because specifically because over time I've had a lot of dietary issues, and so it's really fucking difficult for me on a personal level, but that doesn't mean I don't try. It's definitely something I would like to get to, but I always describe myself as sort of aspirationally so. I've been in a slow process of eliminating as much meat as possible from my diet, but I'm not there yet.
Okay. It doesn't sound like you believe there's like that much of a moral urgency to cut meat out of your diet.
Mm. I would disagree with that. I mean, I think that there is a like. I mean, I guess maybe there's some accuracy in saying that my personal diet isn't the moral urgency that I like that I fixate on. Partially because I don't think that like any individual's meat consumption is really the issue at hand. I don't really think that I think it's a weird approach to me. And this is one of the areas where I've clashed with a lot of different vegan people is that I don't really when I talk about veganism, I don't really focus on individual people's diets at like basically at all. I don't really care. I'm more about discussing how do we make it easier for people to eat less meat? How do we make it less incentivized to produce and eat meat? How do we get people to think about the rights of sentient beings in general? I don't really fixate much on people's individual diets, and the reason for that is because I think that there are significant cultural and social um, like factors that lead to people having a lot of meat in their diet that aren't all that don't actually like they don't really they're not their individual diet choices are not the issue at hand. It's the fact that like we have a government that's willing to discount the price of meat functionally because they like that, because there is lobbying from the meat industry, because there is lobbying from the producers of meat, because there is dietary and ideological approaches to this. And I always tend to focus on that shit more than individual people's diets, even my own. So I guess I don't really feel a whole lot of personal moral urgency over whether me or any other person individually eats some meat sometimes, because I think the harm is very minimal in comparison to the overall culture of meat eating, which goes much deeper than anybody's individual choice, if that makes sense.
Okay, I think we're gonna have a big disagreement there because
Sure.
I think individual choice certainly should be focused on, and I think the only way you're gonna make systemic changes is if individuals hold themselves accountable, for one thing.
Mm,
So,
maybe.
um,
I mean, we
lem-
might have just a different philosophy on like on how large societal changes happen. While I do
well,
think and
I understand like government oversight and incentivization and shit like that. It does make a big difference, and we do eventually have to get to that goal where, yeah, systemically, like top down, the government has to like ban meat eating, stuff like that. But
Oh, I don't even
um,
I don't even necessarily agree with that. I don't even
really,
think
you
that
don't think
like
meat should be banned?
I mean, I don't know that meat will ever be banned. I don't really my politics, I don't tend to focus on like top-down state initiatives, although I do think that could work. And if a meat ban could be issued, I think that like provided that like I mean, provided it's not just like Thanos snapped and people starve and whatever, provided you could do a meat ban, I think that would probably be relatively agreeable. I mean, I think a lot of people would have a problem with that, and I think a lot of people would have sort of legitimate complaints of their own about that. But my politics, I don't tend to focus on like, should we have a government that imposes this, but rather how do we work, how do we as people and as groups, how do we actually push society in a way that really bad things aren't allowed to happen in the first place. Like I don't imagine that like I guess to me it seems like a pipe dream to ever have an imperial government ban meat eating. How are you ever going to convince a government that believes that it's okay to bomb people, that's okay to wage war over oil? How are you ever going to convince them that they shouldn't exploit animals? It won't
I
happen.
think it's very
So it's
easy.
not something I disagree with you on that. I think that's not an easy
Yeah,
thing to
I think
convince people to do.
I think it's pretty realistic and easy for one thing. So let me just ask you this.
Okay.
Let's say, I
Well,
don't know,
actually,
Joe.
before you ask me that, if it's very easy, why hasn't it happened yet? Vegans have been around for quite a while. If it's so easy to
Well, it
convince
hasn't
the
happened
government to
because there
ban meat,
hasn't been the political will to do it. But
do you think there might be a reason for that?
yeah, because most people eat meat, and there's big lobbying groups as well, and there's just not much
Mm.
political will to do it. Just like how there hasn't been much political will in the U.S. to legalize marijuana. It's easy. You could do it as
I think
like with a snap of
there's
the
a lot more
fingers.
political will to but I mean, okay, but wait, but you're talking about 2 different things. Like, for example, Joe
Okay,
Biden
well,
could
wait.
at the snap of a finger.
We're going a little off track, and I just wanted to
Okay,
ask you a question. Like,
sure, sure.
if Joe Biden were to
Mm.
say, okay, we're going to ban slaughterhouses and ban the sale of meat, and the only substitutes you could buy are either lab grown meat, mock meats made out of soy, whatever, and they're going to make that transition within the next few months or years so that there isn't like a food shortage. Would you be in favor of that or not?
Yeah, that sounds perfectly fine to me.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, I don't really have a like I don't really have a problem with I don't really have like a problem with the government taking action against meat production. I just don't think it's I don't think in the current like paradigm that it's likely to be the case, and I don't think that there's any actual motivation for the government to do so. Like governments don't generally act out of their own interest. America already has massive meat production and it's very profitable for the people who are in power currently. So I don't imagine that there's going to be like that we'll ever get a law that bans the slaughter like bans slaughterhouses. It would be cool if we did, but I just don't think that's
um,
the case.
I
I think that
think
what we have to do is we have to like at least the way that I approach talking about veganism, I think it has to be approached on a cultural level that what we have to do is not really and I don't mean this like I don't mean that like I actually think that yes, it is great to encourage people to pursue veganism. That's perfectly fine. I have no issue with that. My problem is that I think that a lot of vegan activists and activism, at least the ones I've engaged with, the ones that I was addressing in the video you mentioned at the beginning, um, tend to fixate very, very much on individual people's diets as opposed to like, okay, what are the things that are actually preventing people in the current paradigm from making this change?
there's
Because
nothing.
like well, I disagree with that. See, that's another area where I disagree. And one of my main frustrations with vegans is that they seem incapable of actually acknowledging the issues that people have with becoming vegans. In
Yeah, there's
fact,
none.
almost to a degree where it's almost delusional. And I always find that really frustrating. Um, because I don't
Well,
think that
let's start from here.
sure.
You've claimed to have your own problems with going vegan, correct? Like you have some dietary issues. I don't know if you have like an eating disorder or something.
No, I just I have a couple of years ago I had my gallbladder out, which means that my intestines are fucking crazy sensitive to everything and I get sick a lot. So it really sucks. But I'm trying to like in my goal, like my aim is to cut down red meat, for example, because it isn't helpful at all. But the reality is that like it can be pretty hard for me to put together a pure vegan diet on my schedule on this with the fact that my stomach is the way that it is. It's just a complication that's happened. I don't think it's like like a get out of jail free card or anything like that. But then again, I also don't look at this like that really. I think that being informative and teaching people and generally moving away from meat is a perfectly fine way to approach the issue. But the thing is, it
Okay.
seems like a lot of vegans seem to have a problem with that.
Okay, so let's just argue from your context specifically. Let's say human meat was on your plate. It didn't
Sure.
give you any stomach issues, and you wanted
Mhm,
to transition away from eating humans
mhm,
to eating plants. And there's no other meat available. There's only human meat, but you know, if you want to be vegan, you either or sorry, the only options you have are either eat human meat or go totally vegan. If
mm.
those were your options, would you be vegan right now?
If those were my options, if my only options were to eat a plate of human meat or go vegan,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, I can imagine I would probably be aiming to go vegan. Yeah.
Okay, well, would you eat people?
I can't imagine I would. I
Right.
mean,
Okay.
but
So
but 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 I
so
mean,
if
but
you learned
like
right, so if sorry, if you learned all the meat you were eating right now, it wasn't chicken, it wasn't beef, wasn't whatever. It was actually human beings, and you're being lied to, and the
mm,
only meat in existence is human beings. Would you go vegan tomorrow?
no, probably not.
Really, you'd still
I think that
pay
would
for
be really
humans to get
difficult.
killed and eat them.
Well, no, I mean, see, I think this is the problem that I always have. This is the approach that I have issues with, which is this idea that, like, I mean, first of all, I don't think you can just like that, like the hypothetical of just saying human meat is like I think it's a shocking, like hypothetical, but I don't actually think it says anything. If we lived in a culture where human meat was if we lived in a culture where human meat was normalized to the same degree that meat is now, where it was omnipresent, where almost no restaurants have options or menus or anything where where your government is subsidizing human meat. I have a feeling that you and almost everyone else in this audience would probably regularly eat human meat. I probably would too. I would like to think that I would be trying to cut it out of my diet, but if we put this into an actual like ancillary, if we wanted to make a fair hypothetical, we would have to come up with a world in which human meat was normalized, at which point I would be against that in the exact same way that I'm against it now,
Okay,
which is that
so you're like I'm just asking you a yes or no question. So if you
that's
learned
it.
all the meat you've been
Like,
eating so far was humans, and
mhm.
the only way you could stop would be to go vegan, would you go vegan tomorrow? Yes
Wait,
or no?
real quick question. No, real quick question. Do you think are you trying to imply that like humans are more important than animals?
No.
Because that's what it sounds like you're
What
trying
I'm
to
trying to ask is, well, what I'm about to like the point I'm trying to make is there's no morally significant difference between humans and animals. So
well, I don't
I
know if I agree with that. I think it would depend very much on your moral framework, wouldn't it?
well,
Like
yeah,
how you
but
approach it.
the what
Some
I'm about
people
to ask you will explore
oh,
that. So
okay, well, I have something to ask you before because you've asked me a couple
okay, well,
questions.
it's
I want to ask you
like
something.
yes or no
Do you think that
question. Would
wait,
you go
well, no,
vegan
no, no,
tomorrow if it
I don't really want to answer another yes or no question yet. I'll answer it in a
well,
second. I want a
it's a
turn. I
simple
want a turn
yes
to
or no
answer.
question. You have to answer
Well,
it for
I
this
have a
debate
simple yes
to
or no question for
progress.
you
Okay.
because I mean, remember, like you did come on here, and so I think it's fair that I ask a question too.
Okay. Okay.
Um, would do you think that eating a bug is the same as like eating a human?
No.
Okay, why?
Well, there's differences in sentience, there's
Mm.
differences in ability to experience well-being, there's differences in lifespan.
But bugs
Um,
feel pain still, right? Like
well,
they writhe when
correct.
you shove
Like depending on the type of insect we're talking about, if it's like a non-carnivorous insect,
them.
I would probably argue, yeah, there's probably a not morally significant difference between the human and an animal. I don't know.
Okay, so
Like
you draw
if
the
we
line of
trade
insects. So what
equalized,
about okay,
if we
I'm
trade
not done yet.
equalized
I'm
the
not
insect to the human, and the insect was, or sorry, the human was as intelligent or would live as long as the insect, I wouldn't be comfortable with killing and eating the human.
wait, you mean the
So
insect?
Sorry?
You mean the insect?
Well, the differences I just mentioned for the insect, sentience and whatever, like, yeah, like, if we're talking about your average human, I'd be
Uh-huh.
committing far less harm by eating the insect versus eating your average human. But if we were to trait equalize the human, where the human had just as much sentience, intelligence, was only going to live a few months, I'd still be uncomfortable eating the human, even if all the morally significant differences were accounted
Why is
for.
that though? Can you just answer me why that would be?
Well, because they're sentient, and I'm
Well,
not
I thought you said it'd be trait equalized.
right.
So if the bug was also sentient and the human was sentient and the traits were equalized, you would have more of a problem eating the human than the bug?
No. If they're
So
equalized,
you would eat the
then
human.
if they're trait equalized, then it's the same.
Oh,
Like
right.
the
But that would
point
also
I'm
mean that they have the
like
same
the
level of
point.
sentience as well.
Sorry.
That would mean they would have the same level of sentience as well.
Correct, but
Right. So why
like
would
to
you
get
care?
back to the
Why would
sorry.
why would you eat the bug but not the human
Well,
if
I
they're
wouldn't
both
I wouldn't
sentient?
eat either.
Oh, okay. Well, what if you had to
Um,
choose between the bug and the human? Which one would you eat?
oh, if I had to,
Yeah, if
some
you had to
like,
choose between
well,
a sentient bug and a sentient human, which one would you eat?
are they trade equalized, or are we talking about a normal
Yeah, they're both gonna
human?
live the same amount of time. They both think and they both feel. Would you eat the bug or the
Well,
human?
do they
If you had
think
to
and
choose one.
feel to the same extent?
Well, yes, because you said they were trait equalized.
Okay,
So in this,
so in a situation where they're trade equalized, then I'd see no moral difference. If anything,
okay.
I'd probably choose the
So would
human
you
because out of all
eat the human?
practicality, I'd get more calories and nutrition from eating the human.
Oh, they were equalized though. The meat's the same.
Oh, okay. So if we're talking about a tiny human or a very large insect,
Mhm.
then there's no moral difference to me, assuming they're
So you
trade
would crunch
equalized.
down on a tiny baby or a human-sized insect if you had to choose between them.
If there's like no other option, like if I'm somehow forced to,
Uh-huh.
but like to get back to the question I asked you,
Okay.
um, fuck me, what was I gonna? Oh yeah, if the only meat options you had were human beings, and if you go to the grocery store, it's not chicken, it's not steak, whatever you eat normally, it's just
Yeah.
people. Would you go vegan tomorrow if that was your only way to stop from paying for people to be killed and eaten?
Um, I don't think I'd be able to go vegan tomorrow. I think that would be very difficult, especially
So
because there's
you'd
already stuff. Especially because there's
right.
already stuff that I purchased in my fridge. It's odd. See, the thing is like nobody actually
So
pays. Well, hold on, I'm not done yet. You got to let me answer if you wanna have a conversation. So nobody actually pays for an animal to be killed. In capitalism, we go to the grocery store, and with our finite wages, we choose from a bunch of things that are put there more or less for us. The corporations decide what they stock, they decide what's available, they decide the prices and all of that. We don't actually have that much choice, and no one ever goes, I mean, very rarely, maybe some rich people go and like personally have an animal slaughtered for them. Everybody else, the meat gets delivered there whether they buy it or not, and there is sort of a loose conglomerate of demand that economists can sort
yeah,
of
that's
back
not true.
fight
So
over.
there's a thing called supply and demand. If you don't pay for it, then that means there's going to be less supply.
Oh, wow. That's very
So
high level.
again, if okay, so
Well,
if there was a human meat trade, would you tell everybody, oh well, there's no point in avoiding human meat because it's just going to be a supply that's going to be continually refilled. There's no option you have. So if
of
there was
course
an
not.
option between human meat,
Hold
animal
on a second.
meat, or
You're running way
plants,
ahead of yourself here. Hold
no,
on,
no,
you're
no, no,
running.
no, no. So if there was an option between
You're doing the
human meat at
vegan
the
thing
grocery
again.
store and
Why
everything
do
else, would you make the same argument that there's no moral difference between eating human meat because oh well, it's a stock that's replenished and you have no choice how the stock gets replenished.
I have no idea I feel like you're not actually listening or trying to
No,
engage. And this is
I
by
listened
the way,
perfectly
this
well.
is one of the things that really frustrates me about vegans because what happens whenever I argue with a lot of like really hard and dyed in the wool vegans, like these really hardcore vegans like yourself, is
Okay,
they
you
come
didn't
in.
answer my question.
I'm because I'm talking. You know
Okay,
that
well,
that's
I don't really want to listen to you talk. I'd rather you listen to the
okay. Then
answer the
get off my
question.
show.
So, okay, so what like if you wanted to
Then get
have a
off my show.
discussion, then
No,
why
no,
are
no.
you
Hold
just
on. This is really
rambling
close.
about random
Wait.
bullshit? Just answer the
Hold on a
question.
second. Excuse me. Excuse me. All due respect, you asked to come on my show. You showed up in
You
my
made a
chat.
video saying that you wanted to debate me and that I wouldn't
I
because I
made a
avoided
video
you or
like
something.
over. No, I'd never said that once. I would love. In fact, can you find me the citation where I said that you
Let
that
me.
you supported me? 'Cause
I
I know
think
for
I
a fact
just had it
never.
opened.
I guarantee you that that clip never happened. If you can find me that clip, I would love it. I'll show
Yeah,
it
I
right
had it
now. I know
opened
you can't because I never said
recently.
that. I did mention at one point, I think we exchanged DMs, and I said that I was open to talking to you about it, but I didn't know if I ever would. And yeah, I was open to talking to you about it, which is why I invited you on. And you immediately, upon receiving what I consider to be very polite and very calm pushback on some of your views, have now started to fly off the handle and accuse me of things that you don't even know about. In fact, I think you mixed up
Okay,
my.
well, I get upset when people are deliberately dodging questions and arguments and trying
What
to
makes it?
derail discussion. So
The
I
answer is
asked you
wait, wait.
something very straightforward. I asked you if there was human meat on the shelf and there was every other option available, would you still
Uh-huh.
use the same argument that, oh, there's no point in it avoiding buying human meat because corporations are what control stock and you choosing not to buy human meat won't change anything. It won't save a single human
So,
being. So
so there's
would
something
you
very
still say that?
there's something very interesting happening right now,
Okay, you're
which is
still not
that
answering the
I
question. It's a yes or no
that's
question.
very
You're still
funny.
not answering.
That's very funny. But you,
Well, it's
this is
not
like
funny. It's annoying.
okay,
So it's a
okay.
yes or no question. Would you still
Vegan
make that
gains,
same
vegan
argument?
gains. My dear God, vegan gains. This is what I would like to call childish. This is one of the things that
No,
I
it's
fucking
childish
hate.
to avoid answering yes or no questions. So I asked you a very straightforward question. Can you answer it?
Do you think that this is how humans talk to each other?
Well, I think this is how ignorant children talk to each other. At least it's going in the one direction. So I asked you a very straightforward question. Can you answer it?
Did you just call yourself an ignorant child?
No, I called you an ignorant child. So can you answer a yes or no
Oh.
question, or are you just gonna filibuster, waste everybody's time, and ramble? It's a yes or no question.
It's really funny because you're actually proving my point right now.
Okay, well,
Extreme.
you're proving my point that you can't answer a yes or no question because you
I've
know
answered
exactly
like
where it
4 of your
leads.
que it's really funny actually because I tried to answer your question and you immediately interrupted me to go on a tangent
No,
about how
you
I
didn't. You weren't attempting to answer a question. It's a yes or no question, and
I'm
you were
gonna
just
ask you
rambling.
okay, is it
So
my
it's
turn?
yes or
Is it my
no.
turn now? No, it's really funny. See,
If
this is
anything other than yes or no comes out of your mouth, then you're not answering the question. So is it
okay.
yes or no?
I don't can you restate the question again?
Right. So if there was human meat on store shelves and every other option exists, so animal meat,
Right.
plant-based options, would you tell people that there's no point in avoiding buying human meat because their purchasing decisions don't affect supply and demand, and corporations are controlling things like stock and production, so you're not going to save a single human by not buying human meat?
Can I ask you one question before I answer that?
I'd rather you not because it's a simple
But I
yes or no
really
question.
I have a
I don't know
clarifying
what the
question.
point. I don't know what the
Yeah, but
point
I have a
is in
good vegan
stalling.
gains, like vegan gains. I just have a it's not stalling. I just have a question for you before I answer that.
Okay, I don't see why you can't just answer that and then I
Well,
answer
why?
your
Well,
question.
because the weird thing is, I don't like it when weird freaks on the internet come on my show and tell me what I should and shouldn't do, and then when I answer like 3 of their
I'm a
questions,
weird freak.
yes, you are a weird freak. You came into my
Okay.
chat looking for a conversation, you immediately started acting incredibly weird and passive aggressive, and then when I tried to have a normal conversation with you, you kept talking over me and trying to say, "Answer the yes or no question." But I have another question that I wanna ask you, and usually when civil
Okay, go
people have
ahead.
a conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure, go
okay.
ahead.
Did I ever once say that people that I did I ever once advocate in this entire conversation that people shouldn't avoid eating meat? Or did I open this
You
conversation?
literally just
Wait, wait, wait,
stated
wait,
that.
wait, ah, bah! I wasn't even finished. I wasn't even finished, and you couldn't even let me finish, my friend. Let me finish my question. This is a very easy yes or no question. Did I open this conversation by saying nobody should bother not eating meat? Or did I say that I think it's really good if you can reduce or end your meat consumption, but that I don't think that's the be all end all of vegan politics? Which one of those was it? Do you
You
know?
you made two completely contradictory statements where you said it's a good thing
Huh.
to avoid buying meat, and then you followed that up by saying there's no point avoiding meat.
I never said that.
So
Can you
which
find
belief
me?
do you
I would
hold?
really, really interested in this. Can you
Okay,
find the
which
place
belief do you
that
hold? Do
there's
you
no
believe that we should avoid eating meat, or do you believe that there's no point in avoiding it because capitalism?
Well, it's really funny. If you gave a shit to listen at all and
Okay,
during the
again,
beginning,
it's a very simple question that, again, you're
it's
not
funny, it's a very
answering.
simple question that I've answered a million times, but you, like a robotic NPC, continually repeat
Okay,
the same
what
talk.
position do you hold? Do you believe we should avoid eating meat because we're supporting a supply and demand system, whereby buying meat, we're paying for more animals to be killed, or do you believe it makes no difference? Which is it?
Oh, I think it's absolutely great. If you can avoid buying meat, you should absolutely avoid buying meat.
Okay, you're not really answering the
Ah,
question.
see? That's weird. I just gave you an answer, and you
You
don't
you
like my
didn't answer
answer.
my
Now you're gonna say
question.
I didn't answer it, but I did
Okay,
answer
do
it.
you
I just
believe
didn't answer the way you wanted to believe. See,
No,
this is the
no,
thing,
you
this is
didn't.
so
Okay, do
annoying,
you believe
and
that buying meat
video, by the way,
causes
the video
more
I
animals
did
to die?
excuse me, so sorry. By the way, the video that I did on vegans was addressing behavior exactly like this. The fact that vegans will walk into a chat and literally be incapable of engaging in human conversation. They just scream and try to act morally superior and then walk away. And when
Okay,
you
I'm not
answer that
walking
doesn't
away from
permit,
anything.
oh, we'll see about that. We'll see
Okay,
how long
so
you
do you
think
believe that buying meat causes
Mhm.
more animals to die? Yes or no?
I think that indirectly people purchasing more meat can lead to more animals dying, but I don't know that it's an easily distillable number. I don't know that we can draw a direct a direct line between everyday people buying meat from the grocery store which places orders, not always immediately responding to demand, because of the way that modern finance works. So I don't know that that's like I don't think that that's an easy to conclude thing. I think that yes, on some level, avoiding like people not buying meat does reduce the amount of animals that die, but I don't think it's like a direct one to one. If one person stops eating meat, that doesn't mean that one less animal is going to die or
Well, I'd
whatever.
agree with
It
that.
yeah, because
Sure.
and often keep in mind that there's like that there are all kinds of other confounding factors that affect demand. So, for example, for every person who goes vegan, there might be 5 new people who come visit the country and buy a fuckload of meat. And so, while I do agree that to some degree there is a supply and demand relationship, it really isn't as simple as just saying there is supply and demand. And I think that also if you look at all kinds of other commodities that are traded and bought and sold in our society, we see that there's all kinds of things that exist even though the demand is not really direct, aka demand can be generated or created. Do you think that like spontaneously there was a demand for Coke and Pepsi? No. There was a demand created for Coke and Pepsi. A company said, "Hey, we have this new product. Don't you want it? Well, we can send it to grocery stores and they'll stock it, and then you might consider this new option and purchase it." So I just don't think that supply and demand is as easy of an answer when it comes to an incredibly complicated economy like the American food economy.
So you would still say this if we were killing human beings and turning them into meat, and you wouldn't hold somebody
Absolutely.
personally responsible for causing
100%.
humans. Really?
Yeah, yeah, and I can show you the reason why. Because right now, I would be willing to bet good money that you're using a product of slave labor right now, and maybe even wearing the direct product of slave labor.
It's
All
entirely possible.
ah,
The thing is, supply chains can be extremely complex, and yeah, there
yes,
are contractors who hire subcontractors
not just that. You know
who
the
may force children to like weave shirts. The thing is, I can't confirm
1990s,
whether or not that's happening. If I had any control over that, I
mhm.
definitely would avoid products that are a product of slave labor. But I know for a fact when you buy meat, you are paying for slavery and torture and murder. So
Yes, and you are also
why?
I can guarantee you with every product in your house, you are paying for slavery, exploitation, and torture.
No, you
This is the
can't.
problem. Yes, you can. It's very easy.
Yeah,
If you
no, you
chocolate,
can't.
if you, yes, you can. It's super easy.
No, you
Nestle.
can't.
y- I mean, it can,
I
but it's
don't
not
eat.
exclusive.
Yeah, I'm not eating chocolate right now, so I
Oh, that's
no.
interesting. How convenient. That's good. You ever purchased from Nestle? I guarantee you have. Your house is full of.
Yeah, I've bought from Nestle before. I don't think
Do you
I've
know
bought
how
any
direct
Nestle
slave labor is
products.
that under
Sorry?
Nestle? Do you know how direct the accusations, the credible accusations of slave labor are for companies like Nestle?
Okay, I don't know what that has to do with it being okay to pay for humans to be murdered.
Oh, well, because you're doing it right now. You currently are
Okay,
paying
so
for humans to be murdered.
so
You're on an
I'm
internet.
paying for
You're using
humans
you are
to be
using
murdered by
computers.
buying oats.
Yeah, you are.
Oh,
By doing
really?
all
Okay,
kinds of things,
that's
you are.
interesting. Can
Yeah.
you tell me how many people die when per I don't know, hundreds of kilograms or thousands of kilograms of oats that are bought?
I don't know, and I don't really care. You wanna know why I don't
Okay,
really
so
care?
it's okay to pay for people to be murdered?
No. I'm
Well,
just
you
saying that
literally just said there's no moral obligation for somebody to not buy human meat at
I
a
don't
store.
I don't think any of those words actually came out of my mouth.
They did.
Oh, did they?
Okay, well, do
I
you
don't
or do you
remember
not
they did.
believe you have a moral obligation to not buy human meat? Yes or
Um,
no?
no, I don't think you have a moral obligation to not buy a product that is produced poorly. I don't think anyone has that.
You didn't
And
answer the question.
I
Yes or no, do you believe
I just
we have a
excuse me.
moral
With all
obligation
due
to
respect
not
to you,
buy
first of
human
all,
meat? Not
is
buy
there a reason
human meat. Yes or
guys,
no?
by the way, just real
You're
quick,
not even
note
answering the question. Yes or
excuse
no,
me,
do you have a
please,
moral
please,
obligation not to buy
my
human
man,
meat?
my man, you are a child. Can you just hold on for 1 second? But everyone who's gonna be watching this video in the future, this is
Everybody
exactly
who
what I'm
watches this video in the
talking
future will know you're dodging every single question I'm
about.
asking, and you don't
I
even answer.
literally
No, you
directly
literally
answered
didn't.
the
So
question, and
I'm asking you, do
you
you
got
have a
so
moral
mad.
obligation to not buy human meat? Yes or no?
I don't think anyone has a moral obligation to not buy human meat or to not buy animal meat or to
Okay,
not
well,
buy
there you
any.
go. Then you don't believe in human rights. So if I paid for
Oh,
you to get
totally, yeah.
murdered, if I paid a hitman for you to get murdered and chopped up into burgers, that's fine. That's morally acceptable to you. Do you not believe in
Interesting.
human rights?
Do you think this is like a real conversation? Do you think like this is an actual argument? Do you think this
Well,
looks
no,
good?
I don't think I'm actually
Right?
having a conversation with somebody who's taking this discussion seriously. It sounds like you're just trying to do
Really?
everything you can to filibuster, waste my time, not answer
So weird.
questions,
It's really fucking weird that
backtrack,
you'd say that.
everything you
It's really
can do.
weird that you'd
So
say that
you
because,
don't
like,
believe in
I've answered
human rights?
I've answered very directly, and not only directly, but very charitably. I've expanded pretty clearly on my views. You're just literally whining like a man child over the fact that I'm sorry, that I don't perfectly 100% word things the way you do, that I don't have the exact worldview. You're freaking the fuck out and coming on here and accusing me of filibustering because I don't know, apparently big words scare you. I don't know what's up with you, man. Like, I don't know you. I don't even know who you are. You came into my chat and wanted to have a conversation, and you come on here and behave like every other fucking unhinged, pathetic vegan that I deal with. The vegans who I
I'm
deal with,
unhinged, but you think it's okay to pay for humans to get murdered and
I mean,
eaten.
you think
Okay.
it's okay to rape children, so that's pretty weird.
What?
You
What?
just 5 minutes ago told me that you don't care, that you don't give a shit, that you don't know, you didn't even bother to look into Nestle products. You don't even bother to look into the fact that
Okay,
children
so
are raped
Nestle
in meat
rapes
line.
children. All
You are
right, well, I'll
literally
be sure to
advocating
avoid
right
Nestle
now for
products
child
then.
raping. Guys, Vegan
Uh-huh.
Gains just came on my
Uh-huh.
show to advocate about child rapists in
Okay,
favor of child rape.
that's a cool story. So you believe that it's morally acceptable to pay for humans to be murdered and turned into
You
meat?
believe it's morally
And you think
acceptable to
I'm a
pay for
freak?
child rape? Yeah, you're a
So you
freak. You
think
come
I'm
here
a
advocating for
freak?
child rape by your own worldview. Dude, you're a
No.
child rapist. You
No.
like
So
what else are you paying for? How many subscriptions to child porn sites do you have?
wow, okay. So again, you believe it's morally acceptable
Wow,
to
another
pay for
vegan comes
humans
on
to
here
be
and admits
murdered.
to being a child rapist. I love it every
So
single
you
time.
believe it's morally
Moral high
acceptable to pay for
horses.
humans to be murdered and turned into meat, but I'm the freak.
Well, I don't know. You won't answer the yes or no question. When did you stop raping children? When did you stop paying for child rape, my friend?
Well,
It's a
apparently,
yes or no
I'm
question.
not sure. I don't know. Oh my god. Okay, so she kicked me off. Right.
What a relief. When will this poisonous product cease? This is another public service announcement. You can believe it or you can doubt it. Let us begin now with the cow. The way it gets to your plate and how.